tonight we're going to be talking about Hurricane Fiona and the changes, a few changes from Hurricane Maria. And as every catastrophe is so different from one to the other one, you're actually seeing at the storm, depression storm, and within the last 24 hours, you can see how the center of the hurricane start to develop and get concentrated, get speed, and it hits the southwest side of the island. And as we can point out, and like if I can find my pointers here, oops, you will see that it's coming this way, it doesn't. And then it go touch the island here on the west side where I'm pointing out, and then it turns west, southwest, I mean, completely due west, and then it hit Dominican Republic and then start pushing north. So this is very interesting things that they were also, and this is one of the important things that I wanted to talk about. The predictions, the models available for the National Hurricane Center, it doesn't matter if are Europeans from different university of the GFS and so on, you have to be aware that these things are working very well. And you can see from days ahead of time, the tracking, the center tracking is going quite well. And in March, and some of them, as it was getting closer, it was showing that it's going to touch our west side, west-south part of the island, and then move west. And this is very, very interesting. Even windy, it was showing the behavior, and that clearly we was going to be hit by a hurricane. So this is something similar to Maria that they were predicting from early time, that it was going to hit the island in a bad way. And you have to be aware and start believing on this, actually these models, and they're really working. So that's one of the things that I wanted to tell you. As you can see here, the actual path of the hurricane and all the different movement that it has. And we were only hit this time by Category 1, 85 miles with gusts of 100 miles per hour. And the speed, this is what it really is bad. It was expected to be raining about 20 inches. We're going to talk about this again more and more and more, because this is what it becomes quite important. Actually, in Florida, the body has similar problems of this kind, the amount of rain and the waves from the sea, and it touched this corner of the island, and this is about 45 miles from my house, and so that kept me in a safe position. And as I tell you now, compared to Maria, with 150, 65 miles, 160 miles per hour across the island. And this is the actual path. And I was looking for this information because here, the hurricane eye passed over where I live. I live in this region, and I saw the eye, and this is a different story of hurricane. I didn't lose a tree or the leaves, they didn't fall out after the hurricane by being burned by the wind, or the gust. But Hurricane Maria, this is what it did to my house. This is my house, and you can see how all the trees, they were ripped off completely from the canopy and all the leaves, and that was a different story. This is a completely different devastation. Now, talking about devastation, there are different type of damage that it can happen to any place. So actually, this is the storm, hurricane. It hit it here like 18 hours ahead of hitting the island, and then becomes a Category 4. And thank God it went to the sea. So you can imagine, this was an active hurricane season. We have this baby here. We have this baby running here in parallel. And I believe this is the one that it went to Barry's and visit Barry in his Florida territory. So, reports of the wind, 103 miles actually measured in San Juan, 55. So I was within 55 and 70 miles an hour. So that's not as bad. And actually it was about 4 hours with hurricane. And as you know, the better the center, then the wall gets really stronger. But then as you go out, it's much better. So it was really interesting hurricane. But what it did, and this is never expected, because it hits the bottom side of Puerto Rico, we have 100% blackout. And we were completely blackout of the island, no electricity for 14 days. And this is things that they were really bad. And it leave a lot of flooding. And we're going to talk about the flooding. all over the island, unexpected record. I mean, if you want to call it climate change, things are changing. I don't want to get into politics, but now a hurricane comes and it doesn't give you 10, 12 inches of water. It's giving you 30 inches of water. So you have to consider that there were a lot of people who died because of actually drought. And it did happens that it did affected the power line, the main grid. It doesn't matter how rugged it is, it did affect many of those. And so that's the reason that it took up more than 14 days to reestablish the power lines and then reestablish the power. Trying to fix, and this is the actual flight of the power company helicopter, checking all the main lines because these are broken. This is really bad. And they were flying and checking the different stations that they are located, like Guayanilla, Costa Azul, Aguirre, and so on, at the AES. All the main power system are located in the south part of Puerto Rico, in this region, and two over here that give service, actually one here and one here, who give service actually to power up the power generators. And many of the power generators cannot power up by itself. You have to be energized by somebody else, that it could be 75 miles away and get energy and warm it up, and then they will be able to power. So this baby here that is located here in Puerto Nuevo, it gives power to the main government buildings and hospitals, medical center, and so on. But to power this fellow, this lady here, it is more difficult. So this one would energize this one, and then this one will start energizing that one. But for that, you need this type of line being working. And this is another loop that they were trying to fix. And this took a long time to fix this line. And I have pictures, but I don't have it in this presentation, where the several lines, but you can see the path of the helicopter actually checking damages that it was flying and checking damages here. And remember, the hurricane hit this side of the island. Now, this is 24 hours after Fiona impact. We were able to generate about 1,000 megawatt, but because of the power lines failure, you can see that we can just utilize 260 megawatt. And this tells you actually what's going on in the island, and be aware. So, and no way it's almost impossible to bring those power if the lines are down. That also happens in Florida. When it get really impacted, same story. 48 hours, it stays about the same, and they were able to connect a few other lines and give more power to the hospitals, but the civilians, they were really affected. 96 hours, this is about the same, like 100 megawatt higher, but a little bit more load and almost no reserve. And 2 days later, 73% of the population of the civilians was completely out of power, and 73% outside the city with open lines and things like that. We were offline for 2 weeks. I'm part of that kind of victims. And on September 22nd, even the general director of the power system, the power generators, he's the director of all these plants, and you can see the different networks across the island. And wow, there were only a few ones. All the blues and red were bad, and the yellows were the only ones actually working. So from this side, they need to power this one to power up, this one, this one, this one. And that is the biggest problem that we were having, and stability. And this is the total power actually generation on this day. Now, the catastrophe, what really, not only the power, what really affect us is the flooding. And when you have in Calle, Rio Cerrillos, almost 32 inches of water, man, this is something that you cannot escape, that is really dangerous. It damages everything. And this is really to consider, this is the biggest change. 27 inches in Caguas, Ponce 24 inches, Cuamo 24, Villalba, and so on. And this is catastrophe. This is a brand new house in a valley that it never rained, and it never never saw water for more than 100 years. It's not even in the maps. And you see that they came from the hills and the water came through and actually it drained away and destroyed everything, even a brand new house that the owners never was able to live on it because it was destroyed before it happens. That's the reason that the painting and the windows, everything was new, so what is gone. Unfortunately, this is very sad. Near the rivers, the houses that the just simply it went up about 20 feet, and the water levels and took a lot of houses away. And you can see the same house from the neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood was washed away. And even the one that survived, the ladies were trying to, or the people, doesn't matter, were trying to clean and putting things together because life have to continue. But you can see the water level right here. This is how high it came into this house. So everything is gone with mud and water and so on. And this is really what affected a lot of the population. This kind of water. You can see if you have this kind of churn of the river, it will flood and break the bridge and all kind of damage all over the island, and also in the agriculture. So we will talk about it as well. So this picture, actually, I should have bring it in. In Hurricane Maria, this here was completely washed and cut away. This is again flooding, completely flooded, and this is all over the island, almost in every town, every road. And the best way, if you're in a high level or safe place, stay in your house until all the water goes away. If not, you're going to look for trouble. Actually, a gentleman that he was a nurse, he got here trapped, and he appears a week later about half a mile down the street, inside the car. When the water came down, they found the car, and he was dead inside the car. So this is really sad. Somebody who wanted to get back home next day after the hurricane, and he passed away because of the floodings. And the roads were affected all over and washed away. Even near my house, my road, some of them, they still destroy half of it, and it takes a long time to fix them. And it's nothing simple to fix. And this is already about 3 months from 2.5 months from Hurricane Fiona, and they're not still fixed. And they're going to be working on it really soon. Now, we talk about agriculture, and it was washed away in the valleys, and 30 inches of rain. I don't want that to be near Dennis in his valley, because that would be something like this, and that would be dangerous. And you can measure the height. This is the sign, the speed sign, and you can see it's 1/3 of the height of it. This is interesting if it works. There we go. So this is about 20 feet of water. I mean, these rivers, they are very strong and very low water. And you're nearby, you can be damaged by the whole people. It's a hell of a time. And this is the same bridge from the other side, and ooh. So these metal bars, if they get you, it can cut you in half immediately. So these are things to consider when you're getting floodings, not to be near the. Look at this bar here. I want to keep going. Okay. So about the agricultural impact, this kind of floodings, you can imagine all the valleys, they were the plantains and all the grocery, a lot of vegetables that we eat, they were completely washed away. And you can see how bad it is, and it's total loss, and this would take 2 years to fix it up. And papaya, plantains, and all the food, I mean, that was really bad. About ham radio. So what can I tell you? I was on 40 meters, 80 meters, listening in MBS antenna that really works. This pole is about 10 feet high, and this is a 40-meter and 80 meters dipole, and works in NBIS perfect from my house, and the hurricane took it away. And I was using one of my new kits of working with the HF signal radios and listening actually in 7.083 and everything, all the activities on the island. The nice things, and this is really important, that we have to take advantage of the communications what we have available. If we have telephone and cell phones, use telephone or cell phones. If you have internet, use internet, and you try to communicate. And this is an improvement from Maria by when we were having microwave, what was happening right now. This is actually from Angel.
Yeah, well, there it is. It's raining like the son of a gun here.
Antenna provides.
That's what it looks like now.
So just to give you a sense of the hurricane, he lived in Arecibo, so he was about 40 miles from the train.
Let's see how it holds up.
So let's keep it short there and move forward. This picture is about what was before done in Puerto Rico, the way the communication, big towers, microwave, and this is this tower, they actually fall down during Hurricane Maria in all this, the main sites in top of the hills. The big difference is the following from Maria's and today technology. The FCC invested at that time $950 million to improve the broadband by fiber optics in Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands. And they invested, I have this communication at home as we have right now is by fiber optics all the way to my house. That is a big improvement. And this keeps things much better. I don't know about earthquake, it can break the fiber optics and be a similar problem. But what it make this improvement to do is the following. 24 hours after the hurricane, 75% of the communication was totally available. And this is across the whole island. Even in the impact zone, direct impact zone of the hurricane, they were in service. You can try to make a phone call and then probably it didn't go through, but you just dial again and it goes through. So this is a big improvement by moving into fiber optics, and this is the technology is helping us to keep communication. So this time of this catastrophe, that was not a need of amateur radio like it happens in Hurricane Maria, but it worked. It did work. So again, every catastrophe is different, and you have to deal with it. And this is the government data. It's not my opinion. It's so I'm putting here the facts, and you want to look at it, you can go directly into this website and find the history about it and things like that. But the communications, this one, 75%, and I was monitoring the different bands and so on, and getting a few reports. But that's what it was. I mean, cell phones were working across the whole island, so that was really a big improvement. So what really is still challenge, and I'm sure that Barry talked about it, and everybody who have been in recent catastrophe, dialysis to citizens, that was really important. Not having electricity, there was a lack or a deficiency of oxygen. This is really important, and that's not easy to solve. Not easy to bring a lot of oxygen into the territory, especially when you're in an island. Because of the power failure, this is an imbalance of diesel. You think that you will have diesel, the whole community, the whole citizens, they will have gasoline and diesel generators. It will drain away all the diesel that you can have from the gas stations. So the lack and the need of diesel, this is really important. And we were shortage of diesel for about 2 weeks. And even the military have to take the diesel to the hospitals, because there was actually no way to supply with all the trucks driving around the diesel for the hospitals and the gas station, because it's a completely unbalanced from electrical service for power service to generators. That will create a catastrophe just at that point. So this is something very important to think about it, how to replenish, how to have additional, how to have enough for these very first 2 weeks in oxygen as well. And even in the main of the cell sites, why they fail? Because the diesels were stolen from the cell sites. So just be aware about it. And I can assure you, FEMA, people who are working with CISA, FEMA, and the Homeland Security, they know about this. You have to, if you want to survive, you have to have enough fuel in your hand. If not, you will have problems to survive. So getting water, even the power generators for the pumps and wells. About 1.5 million people were affected by having very little or no water for 2 weeks. So they were able to survive going to different water wells, natural water wells, and get some water there. But again, limited gasoline distribution, food distribution immediately. Supermarket, they don't have enough food. And then after the failure of the diesel, the supermarket, they needed to close it. And this is very important because they get the food that have to be refrigerated, they got spoiled. So then they have to close the supermarket until it's completely clean and stabilized and cool things down. So that would take about 2 to 3 weeks to put it back together. And of course, mudslides and broken, wash away roads and so on. You have to find your way to how to get from point A to point B just to be sure. So in my case, working at the University of Puerto Rico, I stay at home. I had enough food at home, work with my power generator, enough fuel in my house to work for more than 2 or 3 weeks. So that's the best way to stay safe until things comes down. But as it hit us hard for a week or 2 weeks actually. When we enter into the 3rd week, everything was getting stable easily and much better, and so that was good. It didn't last that long. So actually, this is my presentation about the effects of this catastrophe. I'm open to questions and comments. The activity of ham radio, because of the better telecommunication was there. I was monitoring the repeaters, the HF bands, and it was calm. It wasn't a big need this time for emergency communications. Back to you, Dan.
Oscar, could you lower your desktop, please?
Sure.
Okay, now we can look for questions and all that kind of good stuff. Get this up here too. I don't see your hands up. Are anybody out there in chat? Hey man, how much rain fell?
Oh, in more than 25 inches across the whole island. There were places who was 30, almost 32 inches of water within 48 hours.
Wow.
Completely pouring water like a faucet. Even in my house that I live 50 feet above the valley, in my terrace, I had 6 inches of water. It was accumulated just on the land by itself. Not by water coming into getting flooded, just simply the collected water in the surface.
Well, how was fishing?
How what?
How was fishing and all that?
No fish.
I thought there was a little bit of something, everything bad. There's a little bit good and everything bad, or however that
goes. Only Forrest Gump has good stories on the bad storm.
Yes, that is true. Okay, Barry, you want to read the chat thing?
Sure. You mentioned going to fiber, and he's assuming that it's buried. Help communications. What about burying electrical wires?
The electrical wires on my neighborhood survived because, as I mentioned, the winds were below 60 miles. Main tower in the high hills and in the south part of the island, they were really affected, and they were having cracks on the ceramics and things like that. So even that the helicopter was taking pictures and movies and checking it, and it passed, let's say, the first certification. When you don't really find that you're having problems until you energize the line, and when you have this 150 kilovolt or 250 kilovolts power lines, and you energize it, and you have a back ceramic. When it goes, then you have a bigger problem. But if you don't see it, unfortunately, until you energize, you don't see all these small details until you fix them. So that's the reason it took about 2 weeks to get the grid back in service.
Okay, I don't see any hands held. There is-
Somebody made a question.
Just one more, part of one of your slides you had people with assisted breathing needs. And Dale wants to know what that means.
Well, if let's say you have heart problems and you need oxygen in your house.
Oh, breathing, okay.
Yes.
Breathing, okay.
Yes. In the
Dale,
hospitals.
breathing, not breeding.
Okay, sorry for that. So also the hospitals in the news, they were claiming that they don't have enough oxygen for their patient. And the thing is that even that they were full at some point after a week or so, the generators of oxygen, they were not operating. So this bring a new ball game, because and don't ask me why they're supposed to be nearby power generator, but once they were offline, they were not able to bring it back on. And, it creates this kind of problems that it's not easy to solve.
What about propane? Do they use a lot of propane for cooking and power generation?
Well, in my case, the propane, they use propane for power generator. I think that supply was supplying fairly well because it's always used like that. It's not used for car. In my house, I use a propane stove, and I change the tank every 2 years, so I have enough. So that's my case. So I have hot food, and it's the diesel that it was shortage, a really serious shortage, and the gasoline. The lines were there for long lines. Actually, I fill up my spare tanks the day before, very, very early, about 5 o'clock in the morning, before everybody got wild, and fill up all the tanks of the car. Then I didn't use the cars. I didn't go out for 2 weeks anywhere. I was in my house. So that's the best way to stay safe. This time I don't need it to be, I'm not section manager right now, so I don't need it to be moved around for emergency communication or things like that. So that's okay. Let's stay quiet and safe at home, and listen. If I can give a service for emergency communication, I'm willing to do it. If they call me the Red Cross, and the Red Cross, I know that they were moving all their energies to the southwest side of the island, and even monitoring their frequencies, things were working. So you keep quiet, you just listen unless they need your help.
Okay, Mr. Dan, you got the floor, got your hand up.
Yeah, hello, Oscar. So you covered some of the lessons learned about the improvements and what wasn't improved between Maria and what was this one, Iona?
Yeah, Fiona.
Okay, so what about like that bridge washing downstream? Are they going to change the standards for public works projects to make them more resistant to this kind of obviously recurring flooding? And other lessons learned like that. The electrical grid, apparently, the communications grid seemed to have had the best improvement, and still there's room for more always. And the electrical grid looked like the infrastructure held up to a much greater extent than it did in Maria. What about other significant public works required for public welfare, and in particular, the support for medical facilities? Are you hearing of any changes in planning and building requirements to accommodate this kind of recurring flooding?
In the hospital, they are getting improved by communication, by having fiber optics as well. I don't know what they're going to be doing about diesel and the power generators and oxygen. This is something that I cannot answer you that, but they learned that they were having real problems with that. And also about the bridges, because you have a combined question about the bridges. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. These rivers, like the one in Salinas, in Utuado, the one that I show you, when you go there normally, you see just a stream of water, so quiet. but you see the stones that they are washed away, a lot of stones. So when you get really this kind of flooding, like once every 100 years, you get really in trouble. I have no idea what they're going to do. I know that this town of Utuado itself, the bridges have temporary landscape, earth bridges with pipes at this moment. And I would answer you this question probably within the next 6 months, a year, what they decided to do. And every time that it comes, Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Fiona, all these three bridges, they just wash away and they break up. And the flooding is a catastrophic flooding in any case. Actually, there's a lady who got trapped in the bridge, and it was washed away from the top of the bridge to the river and passed away. So we have several, a few deaths, about 30 deaths of drowning just on those 2 days. Unbelievable. Why people have to risk their life and try to cross a bridge during the floodings. This I have no idea. I don't understand. So yes, I believe that the government is trying to improve these kind of things, and I'm sure that they're going to involve the Corps of Engineers from Army Corps of Engineers and try to fix this kind of things. But nature is nature, my friend. When it comes, you have to be ready. About the water, diesel, oxygen, this is something that it have to be improved, that they don't run out of it, or they have enough power to keep it for the hospitals. And they're talking about the infrastructure of electrical infrastructure. In the next 5 years, it's going to be the big investment of about $10 to $14 billion of improving the whole grid. Even my house will have a brand new power system in the neighborhood that is supposed to be more resilient. We haven't started that from Maria, but this is an investment that is actually starting this year. So remember, it's government. It doesn't. If it happens today, it's not going to be fixed tomorrow. It will take a few years to really start to work. Back to you.
It sounds like you were pretty prepared and comfortable living in your home. So kudos.
Thank you. Yes, I am. I try. I actually didn't care. And what I mean, I didn't care about power failure. I spent 1 gallon of gasoline every 12 hours in my generator. And I have my power up with TV, internet, fiber optics. I was talking even with some people in Homeland Security that they were actually talking, and we have a telecom. No problem. The telephone was working, and that was good. My house is when I built it, it was hurricane proof, and it sustained also Hurricane Maria.
Last question. Did your NVIS antenna hold up? I didn't really hear what you said about that.
It did. It held up without no need of taking it out. And remember, all my dipoles, for hurricane, they survived all the hurricanes. No problem.
All right. Well, good on you. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Barry, back to chat.
Sure. Scott from California wants to know, could a ham with limited Spanish knowledge be helpful there, or do they really need to be fully bilingual?
Normally you're going to be talking with the agency, hospital, things like that. Even if you have no Spanish, you will survive, and somebody will translate for you. And what I did when I was section manager, I sent the operator to the fire department. And remember, the firemen, they know the town, and then the operators stay on the firehouse and put the antennas on the firehouse, that the firehouse have generators and food and shelter. And the mayor will send the messages to these operators on the firehouse, and this is what we did during Hurricane Maria. So even with limited Spanish, they will survive very well. And the most important part is if you you need to send a message and requisition and things like that for the needs. At the end, you're just a carrier. It doesn't matter what language it happens. It's like the phones now, that they could be probably Chinese, Korean, or Norwegian. They work. So every help always help. But you need to do the proper interface by, for example, during Hurricane Maria, by having these gentlemen from the firemen in the firehouse. They know everybody in town. They know exactly where to go and check if they need something. And they come back with the nose and they were transferred that way. This is what we did during Hurricane Maria. That was the lessons learned. And what Oliver is doing with the hospital, this is extremely important if you get some kind of shelter inside the hospital as well, because you need to keep the operators safe.
Okay, Barry, how we doing?
That was the last question from the chat.
Okay,
I was gonna say in Florida, they passed a thing where 90% of the supermarkets are required to have generators, either propane or diesel, and 80% of the gas stations are required to have generators, either propane or diesel. One of the things we did, well, we were going to do for our simulated emergency tests statewide was to have a lot, it was based on an international attack on the internet, where the entire state lost power and lost internet. And as part of that, because it was going to be a prolonged outage, there were roving gangs going around and stealing diesel and stealing propane. So it's something that we all have to think about when we're making our emergency plans. The generators are not usually guarded by anybody, so anyone that really wants to can break in and steal your diesel stuff and steal your propane. So we have to be prepared for using solar and using battery backups and stuff like that, because it's going to happen.
Buddy, you are absolutely correct. You have to be prepared that not only they can steal the diesel, they can steal the whole diesel tank with the generator itself. Because it becomes an anarchy. This I saw during Hurricane Maria, I saw it during Fiona, and the best way to be prepared and stay at home until things comes down. And remember, the services of police and things like that, even if you call 911, they won't be able to get there. And by the time they get there 4 or 5 hours after you make a phone call, the whole action is already ended. So you are absolutely right. Internet is important to keep communications and services running. And in Puerto Rico, 90% of the gas stations, they have power generators, but the refueling, because remember, they try to fill up the diesel, but then you use the truck for diesel, you cannot have it for gasoline, but you have the requirement of gasoline as well of diesel. So the gas station, they were running out of fuel, both of them.
Okay. Dennis from Nevada wants to know, were any repeaters available with backup power?
Yeah, they were available and they were running. We didn't have any problem with the repeaters during Fiona. In Maria, as a contrast, 99% of the repeaters was gone because of the antennas of the tower of the station, or really run for a few days, and they were like find out that the generators fail or they run out of diesel. And then you were not able to get into the hill because the roads were really blocked. No, in this time, it was a different story. They let's say 95% of the repeaters and 75% of the cell site, they were running. So that was no problem. Most of them, they fell, as I mentioned, by they were stolen the diesel of the cell sites.
We had some repeaters that had off the grid totally with power and everything, but they didn't take into account was the winds. For microwave towers, you have to have the dishes aimed within a couple of degrees of each other for the communications to take place. And they didn't go before the hurricane to tighten down the antennas. So the antennas were blown offline, and so all of a sudden the entire network just went offline. So it's another thing you need to consider. If you're going to have repeaters that have microwave links, tighten down the microwave antenna dishes before the hurricane, because a couple of 75, 80, 90, 100 mile an hour winds can blow those things out of a line, and then the repeaters aren't able to be linked anymore.
Barry, the main fiber optics in Puerto Rico are on the ground. So
that's great. That's fantastic.
That they survive without any problem. So that wasn't the case. That's the reason that the cell site, they stay up. And we have several loops, okay? We have really several loops.
Okay, Dan, you got your hand up again.
Well, Barry made me ask this question. What about HF radio, since your repeaters and microwaves are no longer working?
What about what? Sorry, Dan?
HF, yes, we have HF nets.
Yeah, okay. And
And we-
there, could they handle all the traffic that would have otherwise gone via your microwave and UHF, VHF repeaters?
We would have stood up other nets if we needed them, but yes, we were able to handle it.
Okay. Well, WinLink has a few.
Another thing we need to take into account is when the authorities having jurisdiction tell you to evacuate, they're not doing that lightly. They have intel. They know what's going on. For example, Sanibel Island on the west coast of Florida, in my section. Mandatory evacuation. 40% of the people didn't listen. They were told that they could not be rescued if the storm hit, and they stayed. Sanibel Island was reduced to rubble. Most of the injuries and deaths came from there. There were 3 bridges to the island. All 3 bridges were washed out. They had to get the Coast Guard to have, afterwards, to make daily runs to ferry deuce and a halves and heavy duty high water vehicles up to the island so the rescuers could do their jobs. If the people had evacuated, they wouldn't have had to expend those resources. So we need to be sure that there were even some hams, because there were actually some hams that stayed on the island to provide communications. Unfortunately, the hams survived, but most of the families and everything else didn't, and they should have evacuated too.
What I believe also, Barry, and that the agencies, they want you to do the most efficient and effective media of communication. So if you have cell phone, or you will use it, if you have fiber optics internet, you will use it, and you go down and you still use all the fastest way of communication, the more stable one, to get that important information out of the impact zone to the authorities to be taken care. And the last will be HF willing and so on. And I do love to use the digital files, because then I would not say something that it was my opinion. I would get the file with what the requisite and whatever they need and their list and send it. Once they get to the other side, I just a carrier. So that is extremely important. Back to you, Barry, and Dan.
Okay, I don't see anything more in chat. Do you, Barry?
Nope, we're good.
All right. Okay, guys, raise your hand. Tell the truth. Okay, don't see your hands raised.
By the way, Dan, it's almost 11 o'clock my time.
Ah. You get to go to bed early tonight.
Yeah, but you're on vacation.
First day, I spent all day cleaning the house in water pressure and things like that. But that's okay. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to see you. It's been a while. We missed you. Nobody's keep time at the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, you started on time today.
Oh, okay. I had to because you were there. I didn't want the raft. Anybody, Oscar's got my phone number on auto dial. So he keeps me straight.
By the way, I haven't heard anything about Oliver. No comments.
Yeah, Oliver's out there. Here's the time, folks. You can badmouth Oliver. Or not.
Really? I got so many good Oliver jokes.
That's not what I asked.
Victor has his hand up.
Okay, Victor, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you. That one video you showed, that piece of metal came flying. How far did that travel? Do you know what the source of that was? Did it just fall off to something, or was it thrown a couple hundred feet?
The whole bridge, it was actually pulled out about a half a mile down the water stream. And with all the piece of metal, I mean, those safety bars and things like that, it just simply was washed away by the water. And if I show you the picture of the river, I mean, without the flooding, it has more than 25 feet high. So
And the smaller pieces were guide rails.
yeah,
like you
guide
see on the
rails.
side of a highway.
Correct.
And those things are missiles.
They behave like a whip. You don't want to be
Yep.
nearby.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay. At this point, we can just kind of open it up for discussion. Anybody got anything, comments, anything to say?
Headache from that.
Would you say there, Richter?
I said, if you get close to that flying metal, you get a headache from it.
Or lose an arm.
Hey Dan, if I may, real quick, I just wanted to thank everybody on this call, and I want to thank you specifically, Dan, for an extremely successful 2022. Oscar, thank you so much for kind of rounding it out with this. But I learn a lot from your talks, even though sometimes I can't attend. I do watch them after the fact, and what you've done with RATPAC and Barry and everybody who's involved, Dennis, whoever, all of you who are doing this, thank you so much on behalf of the amateur radio community, especially the MCOM community, for what you're doing. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I tell you, I went through, when I first started up, I was trying to do it myself, and then I realized I'm going to have to put a team together. And I went through some people before we finally got it balanced out. We got one heck of a good team. I wish we had people that was this energetic and do the things like they do for us here at RATPAC. I wish we had those kind of people at the government level and other places. We get things done. These guys are good, and I really appreciate it. Okay, I see a hand waving from Dennis.
Yeah, I got a question for Oscar. You said you had a 500-gallon propane tank. Did anybody try to steal propane from that? Because the idea is a large propane tank, it never goes bad. And as long as it's secure and doesn't blow away, it'll last forever.
Well, my propane and my gasoline, they're safe in the house. What they do, they want to, I tell you, and you see, you start to open wounds, and what I mean with that is when anarchy starts, there were people stealing generators and gasoline from the garage of other neighbors, coming with just simply with a big truck and breaking the bar at the front gate and pulling out the generator and taking the gasoline arm and taking it away within 1 minute. Also stealing the diesel by drilling and putting a valve just simply by soaking away the diesel from the cell sites. And next day, and I can give you even a name that would testify that by the government. Next day, they fix the tank, put a screw, they will fill it up with diesel, turn on the cell site again, and in the evening, they stole again the diesel. And believe it or not, if you need diesel and you're desperate, you go to this truck of diesel from FEMA, and they get your license number, they will fill it for free, and you will go out with that tank of diesel without stealing it. So the official word is that we were supplying diesel to the general population, but it was through the cell sites. They were stolen. So not only that, that affects the safety and the security of people, because then the cell sites are out of commission. And that is dangerous. That's the dangerous part. But people doesn't realize during anarchy, I know about 3 cases that ladies came out of the supermarket with the groceries, and they were actually smugged by a car, taking the food, her money, the car, stealing the gasoline, and turning on the car in fire afterwards. So this is the most dangerous part when anarchy comes, and they need their goods for, it doesn't matter if it's for drugs or alcohol or for their family, food. I mean, they need those resources, and this is the bad side that we should talk about it. And you have to keep your operators safe. That doesn't happen to them. Remember, operators go to a town, and they will have some food, they will have some money, they will have gear, and people there needs money and something to trade off. And if you're having fuel, man, you're a target. You're really a target.
I was just curious if a 500-gallon tank was immune from being attacked. Because it's not like, because they can't really pick that up and take it.
No, but you make a drill with a battery drill and just put a piece of brass and boom, you just melt it out. And the bigger the hole, the faster the diesel goes out. So.
Well, I mean propane. A 500?
Propane,
Yeah.
no, the propane, I don't know. The propane is not as aggressive as the diesel and gasoline.
Yeah.
By the
Because
way,
that would still work for your generator, and but you'd have to have the tank protected with a fence around it, of course, and possibly.
let me tell you a story that is even sad. And some people ask me, Oscar, why you don't like to give your Hurricane Maria story, because it's so sad. I know about senior facility centers, that they were stolen the tap water. The water was stolen. So the elderly people, they run out of water and they pass away because they didn't have water to give them.
People, as soon as we figure out people, we'll be okay, and we've never done it yet.
So we need guns.
No, we really don't. The wrong people with the wrong guns have a problem, and
Well, they already have them. Yeah. You need guns to protect yourself from the wrong people with guns.
We won't get into a gun conversation here.
No, that's a political action. Let's stay away from it.
Yeah, we're going to stay away from that. Okay, anybody else got any comments? I don't see hands. I don't hear any comments. Barry, how we doing? I don't hear Barry. Sound like Dan snored.
Is this the last presentation of the year?
It is.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes, it is. The last presentation, I think, no, I think we got one more next Wednesday, not Thursday, but
Okay.
next Wednesday.
Okay.
But anyway, it has been a pleasure to be here with my friends and share our experience. By the way, some people say that was not that bad hurricane. I say, don't worry, there's a few more coming.
I gotta say that you're bringing up the subject of anarchy. And depending on the circumstances, that does become an incident within an incident. And there are ways to plan for it. I've been involved in it, and it makes you sick to your stomach, but you can plan for it.
Yes.
Way back in Y2K, the federal government and state governments had a lot of planning for that, and none of it was wholesome. I mean, it was all really bad news. But it's going to happen.
And this is something that we should be prepared. And I stress my comment again, during Hurricane Maria, I was in charge of these operators, even the force of 50. So I was extremely worried about these guys, and we make a pact with the fire department and we send it to the firehouses. That way we keep them safe. And then we were able just to leave one operator in the firehouse, because then the firemen take care of him. And that is, I tell you.
Well, that's the reason that amateurs need to not pretend they can be first responders, because at that point, they're part of the problem.
Yes, they're in danger, and they could be.
You have to invest resources in looking out for them. And it's an ongoing thing, but just more education and more training and more honest communication. I mean, the brutal, ugly stuff, like talking about how are you going to stay safe? But in the context of a larger plan, so that all the good guys know what's going on.
And trust. If you send somebody to an impact area, you need to send it somebody that you can trust.
Okay, somebody, I don't know, I can't see my screen right now. We're going to be on Christmas break on December the 28th of next week. And so we won't have that one. And then on Thursday, the 29th, we're taking off. And we're going to take January the 5th off. However, on January the 4th, we will have a presentation. Have one in between all that stuff.
Okay. So everybody have a happy holiday season and have a happy new year. And
Happy
stay
holidays
safe.
and Happy New Year.
Yes, please do. And thank you for everybody for making it whatever it is. I mean, I think we have a lot of good things that's happened and we're doing, and we got looking forward. I think that RATPAC has been in business for about almost 3 years now. It wasn't always called RATPAC, but it took a while before it got that name. But we've been going for nearly 3 years now. Doesn't seem like it at times, but and it's because of people like you, it works.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We're going to say 73s. Wish everybody the best of the holidays, and we'll see you next go round.